Hi there beautiful creatures, welcome back. So I watched the ever popular Kelly Bear's video finally on her top 5 decks that she would take with her if she was away on a year's journey. And I thought this would be a really interesting exercise because I am guilty of jumping on the this is a popular tarot deck, or this is coming up on my Instagram feed or on my Pinterest or whatever, I need to have this deck, or even just everybody around me is buying a tarot deck, I think I should buy a tarot deck too. So I am guilty of that. So I wanted to really see which 5 decks, if I went away somewhere and I could only take 5 decks, I would take with me basically. And I'm pretty interested by the by the results. So my absolute first pick, one that I can't live without, one that I know that I'm gonna have with me for the rest of my life, that has this little tiger eye with it, is my Royo Dark Tarot. This was one of the first decks that, oh, and there is artistic nudity in this, forewarned. This was one of the first decks that I instantly connected to. I had a massive art boner for this deck because I love the artwork. But I had a massive spiritual awakening with this deck. It was the first deck that allowed me to really embrace and accept the shadow side of myself and accept a sacred sexuality and femininity in myself. And I love it. I just absolutely love it. I know that I would not be able to part with this deck ever, because it is one of the intrinsic decks in my life. Now, some of my other choices, well, one of my other choices is not actually a tarot deck. So I might show that one to you next. This one I know I would never be able to part with because it's the Gypsy fortune telling cards, and this is the copy that my grandmother I inherited from my grandmother when she passed away. And I have a lot of memories as a kid reading with, not with this set, because this set was her set, and it has all her writing. I have a lot of memories with the imagery in this deck and pretending to read it and kind of, I don't know, I would never be able to part with this deck because of all those memories, and it has such an ancestral feeling to it. Yeah. So I don't know if this is a Kipper system. It's a cross between like a Kipper system, German Kipper system, and like a Lenormand system. But it's kind of its own other thing, and I think I've never really learned how to read with them properly. Although I kind of got there. I kind of read with them in a certain way. So yeah, this is another deck that I would definitely take with me, and one that I would never live without because it's a reminder of her, and also of the fact that I guess, I don't know, I guess that there is a lineage to why I am the way I am, and whenever I kind of feel alone, this is a reminder of that, if that makes any sense. Sorry to get all deep and wistful for a second there, but you know how it is. Yes, so these are not tarot, but I definitely would have to take them with me. The next deck is one that I had one of the most intense reactions to that I've ever had with a deck. And that is the Tarot of the She. And the reaction I'm talking about is this fucking glyph right here. It still gets me, still trips me the fuck out. I love this deck so much. I am so glad when I saw this deck sitting by itself in the shop that I got this deck. I would not be able to live without this deck. Because the energy of the Fae and the She in this deck is just so strong to me, and they speak to me so clearly, and they are just so magical and amazing that I don't think I could live without this deck in my life. Like, I have a couple of fairy decks, fairy tarots, and this was the one that I had to choose, because to me this is typifies a sort of, oh yeah, and Pan, of course. what the fuck? Do you see? Faye do this to me all the time. Guaranteed none of these other cards are reversed because I don't read reversals. Pan came out reversed. Make of that what you will. Anyway, this is definitely one of my top 5 decks. Sexy Pan. And yeah, I definitely would not be able to travel or live without this deck in my life. So that is another one. I also love the size of it too. It really lets the artwork speak and the messages speak for themselves. So the next one is a deck that I don't actually use at all. And I probably will never use, and that's the Lord of the Rings Tarot. I will never use this deck because personally I find the artwork kind of disgusting. Disgusting as in, like, I'm totally unattracted to the borders of this deck, to the way that it's laid out, to the keywords. Basically everything in this deck is severely unattractive to me, but this was the first tarot deck I ever got when I was a kid. I didn't even know what Lord of the Rings was, and somehow I felt drawn to get this deck, and my mum purchased it for me, and the Lord of the Rings has become a massive, massive inspiration and guide, and I've fallen in love with Tolkien's world of the Lord of the Rings and the characters, and so I can't part with this deck, and it kind of needs to be with me if I'm going to be away anywhere, because for that long of time, because I need to know that it's there and that I will have this deck, if that makes sense, because it was my first ever. And yeah, so I mean even though I don't use it, and I find, well, the artwork isn't ugly, it's the borders, it's the layout of this deck and the backing that is just fucking hideous. But everything else about this deck, it's just so full of meaning. And again, I have memories of reading with this deck, not even knowing how to read cards, just making it up. Reading with my grandmother and telling her fortune. Because as I've said before in another video, she always thought that I could read fortunes better than she could. So she always got me to read them for her. So that is another deck. And then, surprise or not so surprise, if I can get this back into its little home. Ow, sorry. I have to be careful of my thumb, and I'm not really doing that. The other deck is the Thoth deck. So this is a really new deck for me. All the cards are still in order. And I already feel like I would not be able to part with this deck, because I feel like it has so much to teach me, and so I have so much to learn from the imagery, but I'm also getting a lot of just strong intuitive messages from this deck. And also I love learning. Learning is why I'm still in university even now, and why I hope to become a lecturer someday. And this really appeals to that kind of scholar within me. I love the Thoth deck for its layers and layers of occult symbolism, and the artwork is just so revolutionary for its time. It's like, from a purely artistic perspective, you know, if you're thinking this was made in the 1940s, it was really, like, it reflected the time, but it was also ahead of the time in terms of creating a culture, like a symbolic, occult kind of, yeah, a new visual language for occult symbolism, I think is what I'm trying to get at. And that's the energy this deck holds within me. You know, when people speak of this deck, they speak of the New Age and the New Aeon, and I love all the Freudian symbology and the Jungian symbology in this deck as well. Psychoanalysis is something that endlessly interests me, so I love this deck for that reason. But yeah, I really feel like this deck holds the energy of a new age within it. Like, the energy that was made in its creation never quite really left it. So That's a really awesome thing for me. I love decks with a lot of power in them, like with a, I guess that's the right word to use. What decks that I think have a lot of magical just power in the symbols that are used and the way that they're laid out. So those are my top 5 decks that I would take with me if I was, you know, on a journey for a year and I couldn't take all of my wonderful decks with me, although I would struggle so hard because I'm so attached to every single one of them and I love them all equally, even if I don't use them very much. So yeah, that's my VR to Kelly Bear's video. I'll link her video down below. Thanks so much for watching, guys. See you in the next video. Bye.